guys, welcome to Whole Heart Transformation. So happy to have you here today. Well, I want to introduce you to my very special guest, Aaron Eggman. He is my coach. He's been my trainer for the last about year, I think. And he's not only changed my life as a coach, but my family's life. And he is the founder of Character Formation Coaching, which is what I've adopted now and just love with my clients. I've seen so much transformation. And I asked him to come on and share a little bit more about that, just to give you an overview, how it started, what it's rooted in. And so, Aaron, would you be willing just to share a little bit about your background and how you started Character Formation Coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing me on. I'm excited to be on the show. Yeah. So I had been going through life, me and my wife. We've kind of come from pretty difficult pasts, and we had been involved in many different Christian ways of trying to get transformation to occur. And so we've gone through all the inner healing ministries, and we had really done a lot of all the best the church could offer, studied the scriptures, known the word of God like crazy, and just really immersed ourselves in having a strong faith and trying to be transformed by God and into the image of God. But we found that each of us couldn't get past a certain point, and our marriage at one point became such like there was the difficulties inside of our marriage to the point where we had to come off of the missions field and stay in the United States to try to figure out like what's going on and get to the roots of what was happening. And so my journey came, and I found my love failing for my wife, and she needed something that I could not offer, and I was unable to really have empathy for her in the places that she needed me to be in there with her. And so my journey didn't begin to try to come up with this nice character formation coaching or anything like that, but it simply came into how can I love my wife. And so I started a counseling program with the Townsend Institute. I had read some of John Townsend's books and Henry Cloud's books, like Boundaries or Hiding from Love or Changes That Heal. And those books had really helped me and started to grow in different areas, such as being able to say no so I could wholeheartedly say yes, as well as just kind of beginning to clearly define what healthy was. And since those books had helped me so much, I decided to pursue taking my counseling degree there so that I could again learn how to get to deep transformational change. And it was really cool because when I started the program, they put us into what's called process groups. And as Melissa, you well know, like that's kind of the bedrock now of everything that we do. Is as I went into learning how to grow in counseling, at that point, I transitioned from counseling into executive coaching and consulting with a real focus on life coaching there at the end. But I have that background in those different fields, and so, but my experience there at a university level, going for a master's program, was this group in which I found myself pouring out, like not even knowing that there was something going on inside of me, but it's like somebody else shared in a group. So it's again 6 to 8 people. It's an intimate setting. There's a facilitator, and the facilitator is just welcoming different people to kind of bring different things from their life that they want to process with the group. And as I was just simply listening and trying to be there for another person as they shared, all of a sudden I found myself getting in touch with deep-seated disgust, which I actually found it was kind of like due to the trauma that I had grown up in. I had numbed because I had felt disgust towards behaviors that I had done towards my wife in my marriage and how I had harmed her really in my marriage. And so when I was able to share what I had done in my marriage with her and then like bring that out, all of a sudden I found this deep gut wrenching like disgust that I had no idea there. And it burst from me. And then I kind of experienced the love of the group and people drawing near to me and my vulnerability. And it really unlocked my empathy. And really what started this whole thing as character formation coaching was was a key that unlocked something deep inside of me. And so from that point forward, I decided that, like what I had just experienced, I wanted to learn and grow in the art of the science of permanent transformational change. And so it's like putting systematically putting neuroplasticity into systematic action, where it's like neuroplasticity, the brain can change, and being able to know the science of how that happens, but then coming up with an art of what that means. And so from my journey from that point on, I read hundreds of books. I kind of worked my way back in the science of the fields, reading things from like all the different fields of science that had been coming out. And I started in the present and worked my way back to about 2008, reading interpersonal neurobiology and affective neuroscience and transformational studies and infant and mother recorded sessions where you could sort of see what it's like for a mom and a baby to be in attunement with one another, and as well as immersing myself into more of Dr. Townsend and Henry Cloud's character and competence therapeutic model, or they also have a coaching model, which I kind of got to know both, and so I immersed myself in both. And so as I began to immerse myself here, I then began to pull in different fields of transformation, people who have gone before. Diana Fosha is one of those. She does it more of in a therapeutic way. I've adapted it into a coaching modality, but she came up with just this incredible moment to moment, second to second map where you can actually see transformation happen, or even feel transformation happen when you get really good at it. And so it's like an invisible world that when you're with another person and you're kind of in that transformational space, you can see what's happening in this invisible language kind of comes to the front as you see what's happening emotionally or affectively meaning emotions as felt in the body. And so you can sort of see what's happening emotionally inside of the body. And so through all the different studies and through all the different books that I read and through my own experience and through seeing it reach my wife, seeing it reach me, I began to write a book. I began to each and every grad school class kind of create the model, put it into practice in a coaching way, and then just began to see just incredible results. And it was really like just accelerated deep transformational growth that resulted. And so if I was going to define character formation coaching, it would be to stop trying to change in a counteractive way, meaning that you're always trying to fight a battle to win. So it's like, I don't want to think these thoughts, I need to think these thoughts, or I'm going to try to stop doing this so I can do that. Being more of a battle that you're always trying to win, but always struggling into a place of changing the very fabric of who we are at a deep transformational level, at a character level. Character could be defined, Dr. Townsend defines it as that set of capacities needed to face and feel reality. And so he came. So using a couple of different models, such as the character and competence model, came up with how to define what healthy is and what is not healthy, using some of the affective maps from accelerated experiential dynamic psychotherapy, which is Diana Fosha's change model, and then drawing in from a whole bunch of different fields and a whole bunch of different coaching fields and different fields of science, I was able to come up with and create character formation coaching. And so I found both individual and group modalities to be extremely powerful. Work with couples and all that kind of stuff as well. And so it's really cool to start to bring others and to train others in it, and to, for everybody else to see that kind of result. So where would you like me to go from here?
I love that. I love all you're saying, because I know it's something you're super passionate about and knowledgeable about. And so it's like, we could talk about this all day long.
Yes.
It's so full and
yes.
so many moving parts to it. But basically, the gist of what you're saying is I experienced this myself. I started to recognize that I wasn't getting any change, transformational change from doing the things that I was doing in church, the behavioral stuff that I was trying to accomplish. It wasn't working. And then through my own process groups, I started to discover how to create transformational change for myself. Right.
And that change then being just who you are. And so it's changed the very fabric of who you are. So you react differently to life stimulus. So in the past, when it's like something happens and you would react a certain way, you actually just find yourself completely different. And you can actually even like be like, oh my gosh, I used to respond like this, but that's not even where I'm at anymore. And so it's like just a effortless change, which is just so cool to discover how you are different in a deep way. And so if I was going to define like, it's always good to define like what is the root cause when we're talking about changing in a when it has to do with like emotional rooted issues, which a lot of things are emotionally rooted. I like to define the problem that we're facing as an inability to face and feel reality. And as a result, because we can't face and feel, or we could not face and feel when we were younger, that we protect ourselves. And so our protective mechanisms, I call hiding patterns or defense mechanisms, is your typical language. And so it's like we defend ourselves, and it's helpful at the time that we defend ourselves, but then we continue to use those defensive behaviors in the present. And so what happens is when we can't face and feel. So let's just give you an example so I can make it a little bit more concrete. So you're going through life, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, things are going really well, you're growing and developing in character, but then all of a sudden a death in your family happens. Let's say your grandfather dies, right? And your mom was really close to your grandfather. And so now all of a sudden your mom cannot deal with the grief and the loss of her father for whatever reason. And where she was able to be there for you and was able to help you to process sadness and grief in that space, because she's got too much going on, she can't process it herself. Now she can't process it with you. And so you're at 4 years old needing to face something that even your mom, who's way older than you, can't face and feel. And so it's too much to process. And so emotions, when you process them, they only last about like a minute when you're actually able to face and feel. And it's like it can start and it goes and it naturally is felt and dissipates inside. But when you don't face and feel, say with grief or in this case, in this example, and you're unable to, you have to protect yourself in some way to get through it. But what happens in the brain is we begin to learn how to disconnect from that, what I call a neural network, meaning whatever's associated with grief in your mind, be it the images, the emotions, the body sensations, the memories that get linked to that. And so at that point in time where you can't process it at 4 years old, the brain kind of takes a snapshot of that time, and it stays. It doesn't go into long-term storage in the brain. Instead, it stays as if it's like present moment happening, and your brain at any point in time can time travel back to that very moment. And so things happen in your future that trigger that neural network of grief. Somebody else dies, or something happens with your dog, or you lose a job, or there's so many things that your brain connects to that. But anything now that your brain connects to that, a loss or grief, anything associated with that grief neural network, since you weren't able to feel and deal with it at 4 years old, all the different patterns that you used in order to cope or survive with what happened at that time, you're still using now. And that becomes a counteractive way to protect yourself. And so what we need to do in a coaching session is to together, with where you didn't get with your mom, and your mom wasn't able to be there and help you to process all that's associated with that. It's like the coach, it's really cool if you put yourself under an fMRI and actually see the brain light up. it's like what happens is you're showing empathy, and empathy, it's like your brain and the other person's brain is lighting up in the exact same way. It's called brain synchronization. And so you're actually like synchronizing your brain with another person, as a mom would do with their child when they're really emotionally felt with that empathy. So in that empathetic state, your brains are synchronized, and when your brain is synchronized with another person, they can now go and face and feel in places they cannot face and feel alone. And so it's this really cool thing of, I call that the zone of transformation, when it's like a person cannot get to a certain place on their own, but when they're in a session and you're synchronizing your brain with them and being with them in the way of character formation coaching, we kind of train and teach our facilitators to be in. Your brain is synchronized, and now all of a sudden they can face and feel with what they could not face and feel with alone. It's as if the brain, which was developing, and that one brief neural network, that one part of that person got stuck in that four-year-old resourced place. And so although the rest of that person is continuing to grow and develop, and they're able to function as an adult, so now the person's, let's say, 30 years old, and so they can function as a 30-year-old in all these different places. But then all of a sudden there's this one thing that happens in their life that all of a sudden they have the resources of a 4-year-old, and they literally can't move past it. And so in a session we will synchronize our brains, go back to that place where you got stuck, your brain got stuck, and we will be with each other in such a way that your brain, all of a sudden, it's like it catches up. It's like what is disconnected becomes connected and interrelationship, and all of a sudden it's like now that 4-year-old neural network discovers, oh my gosh, I'm 30 years old and I have all these other resources available to me. And it's like this great discovery. And as well as you as a 30-year-old are able to look back and see, oh my gosh, that 4-year-old neural network held something so vital, so important, so outrageously important to who I am. And without that piece being integrated, or without that piece being rescued and recovered and pulled into who I am now, I'm not I'm not living in the fullness of who God created me to be. And so what's so fun about character formation coaching is when we discover an area where we can't face and feel, it actually becomes what's called a door of transformational change, which is, it's kind of an exciting thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm discovering a place in which I know that there's something very vital and very important to who I am as a person, in order to rescue and recover and to integrate into and to take the strengths and the resources and all that's positive and important that aspect of the brain holds, and then bring it into the context of who I am today. Now all of a sudden I get to it's like it gives me the strength I need that I didn't have before, and I become a different person and react differently, and it's just quite an incredible process.
Yeah. Can you explain neural network for those
Yeah.
that don't really understand what that would be?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who's watched Inside Out has a little bit of a advantage there. Inside Out is this really cool movie. It's like a Pixar movie in which it's like the main character lives in Minnesota, or lives somewhere else, but then moves to Minnesota. And so it's like the person, and then it's like inside their brain. And so inside their brain, there's these different emotions, and these different emotions have different memories. And so a neural network is like, if you take an emotion, let's say grief, as what we were doing, grief is, it's like where the brain got stuck in the past. Whatever happens that activates anything to do with grief, it gets linked together, and it's like it's where you got stuck before, you're stuck now. And so you get stuck, and then everything in the future kind of compounds, and all of a sudden now it's like where it was one event that you couldn't face and feel, now there's like 10 or 15 or 20 events that you all are linked together, and you cannot face and feel in any of those 20. But what's really cool about character formation coaching is you can deal with that neural network anywhere. You can deal with it with an event that just happens now in the present, or you can go all the way back to the very first event in which you got stuck on, and you can process that neural network, which is the memory, and what's linked to all the memories, either in the present or in the past in the brain, the stuck memory, especially when we're talking about transformation. And then so what's associated with the memory is images, emotions, and their associated body sensations. And then embodied beliefs. Those are the lenses that we see through that affect how we react to life. And so what we don't face and feel in relationship with those, it's together, it's like the same beliefs are associated with all of them. The same body sensations are associated with that. And so when you're able to face and feel with what you couldn't face and feel with before, it transforms all those 20 different experiences. And it's like now all of a sudden you have a new experience of what you couldn't feel grief on. Now you do feel grief on. And especially because what we're doing it in relationship. And so you have this experience of being with another person being with you, and it's this warm, it's connecting, and so now you have this new experience, new emotions inside, new bodied beliefs that like where you thought, I'm not valuable. Now all of a sudden you have an experience of somebody who thinks you're valuable and is with you in such a way, or and so it totally rewires, it totally like it deletes the old and installs a new experience, a new emotional experience that's associated with it, where you used to feel stuck. Now all of a sudden you feel like a bubbly joy, or a this is right, or this is who I am, or and so if I'm continuing on with the Inside Out example, Riley, the main character, when she moves, wasn't able to grieve her move, and so she got stuck there. And so when anyone asked her about, oh, how was it where you used to live, she kind of like she couldn't feel sad where she needed to feel sad. She couldn't feel sad, and because she couldn't feel sad, it now affected her joy. And so both joy and sadness got all mixed up together, and all sorts of things happened. But then later on in the movie, she's with her parents, and she's able to say to her parents, like, I really miss my friends. I'm sad that we left there. And her parents are empathetic with her and say, we miss it too, and we really liked living there. And they pull her into an embrace, and then all of a sudden her brain is rewired, and she's able to say, yeah, it was sad. I loved where I used to live. And now her brain is okay to say, okay, well, let's figure out what it's like to live here. And so it's all the different memories, or the little balls in the movie, that were a certain color. So all the sad memories would be a neural network, or all the joy memories would be a neural network. So it's just all the different memories in the brain that are associated with a certain embodied experience, the emotions, the body sensations, the embodied beliefs, and the images associated with those memories.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool because there's a couple of things you were talking about that I was like, I love it. Because I had anger that covered sadness and intermingled and, bound together. And as I've been pulling them apart, it's been incredible because I wasn't able to feel sadness at the forefront. This is really what was going on a deeper level. But because I wasn't allowed to experience sadness, I was only allowed to really express anger. And so that was the one emotion that was linked, I felt like, to everything, So I just love that. And it's been fun to kind of unpack that with other clients and people too in our groups and see them, oh yeah, like I'm actually sad. I'm not really angry right now, or, whatever other emotion might be linked, or even joy, like not being able to connect even with joy and just only having the sadness cover, kind of like that movie shows.
Yeah. And one of the different things about character formation coaching, which I love, and that what you're experiencing is so cool, is that we see all aspects of who we are as vital, as important, as needed. And so where some coaching models, or even psychotherapeutic techniques, kind of like try to push parts of you away to get to the important stuff, character formation coaches sees, no, actually, that's, even though it is defensive, and maybe it is protecting you, that's so important and such strength to you. So like, I know I've been with you in sessions in which it's like, I so appreciate the part of you that was angry, that did respond, that has never from then until now continued to fight for you, like fight for your needs, fight to have you be heard, fight to continue to say, this is not okay. I'm not going to settle here, and I'm going to continue until I'm heard or seen or known. And so it's like where some people might be like, oh gosh, that anger is bad. It's like, no, that anger is super powerful and will help you to feel the sadness
Right.
that you couldn't face and feel with as well. And so that's kind of a cool little thing is all parts are valuable. All parts are needed to be the fullness of who we are. We need to really integrate with or connect with or rescue and recover anything that's stuck, any neural networks that are stuck in the past.
Yeah. And then also saying, like, talking about the story of the 4-year-old where the mom didn't know how to grieve. And really, the reality for that child was they were deeply alone and not able to grieve with
Yes.
someone else or be taught how to do that or seen it in a way where it's acceptable. And
Yeah.
then not knowing how to do that themselves and being alone
Yes.
and stuck.
Yes.
And so I love that we do this in our groups. It's like this
Yes.
network will show up and they're now bringing it into relationship and they're no longer alone. Oh, like every time this
So
happens,
powerful.
I cry with them because I'm like, we found you. We found
Yeah.
you. We're here with
Yeah.
you. And it's like, what is it like to have us here with you? And most of the time they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm somebody's with me, you know?
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
You know, Diana Foch's definition of what's wrong is the unwilled and unwanted aloneness in the face of overwhelming circumstances. And I so resonate with that. I put a little bit of a different spin on it. The inability to, like, where we are alone, we have an inability to face and feel reality and relationship. And so, but it is aloneness. If you wanted to boil it down, it's that the parts of us that get stuck in the past are unbearably alone and in desperate need of an encounter with grace. And so as we discover those aspects of ourself that are alone, disconnected from God, disconnected from people, and disconnected from our spirit-led self, it's like we're able to bring a God encounter or bring an encounter with, undo that aloneness in such a powerful way, and it just experience have such a great experience of being found.
Yeah. Okay, so explain this to me, Aaron, because this is something we really work with in our teaching with character formation coaching. The beauty of definitely having God in that space, but often not inviting other people into that space and not knowing how to do that and feeling like all they need is God. Can
Yeah.
you explain that a little further, why it's so important to not just only include God in the equation with character formation coaching?
Totally. And the best place to start with that is going back to the Garden of Eden, where everything was perfect and Adam had perfect communion with God. It was, he had just been created. He had named all the animals. He was living in perfect communion with God. But even at that moment before sin entered into the world, God looked and saw the situation and said, "It is not good for man to be alone." And so he created another human being. And so take sin out of the equation. Yeah, sin comes in and it causes all sorts of stuff, but take sin out of the equation. It has never, ever, ever, ever been God's plan for us um, to only go to him without his expression upon the earth, his body on the earth, his eyes, his feet, his hands, his body being able to meet you in those places. It was not good for Adam to be alone in the Garden of Eden. It's not good for us to be alone. As when he created Eve, it said that they were naked and unashamed. We were always meant to have that naked and unashamedness and vulnerabilities with one another. And that naked and unashamedness being like being known and being loved at the deepest levels. And so really for if you only have that expression with God and pouring out your heart with God in a vertical sense, but you're missing that horizontal sense, God says it's not good. And it's not. One of the character structures that we talk about is called attachment. And attachment is the ability to face and feel emotions in relationship, as well as being able to know your needs and to bring your needs to other people to have them met. And so if you are someone who has a really strong relationship with God and you're always going to God, but you don't have that same exact experience of God through his body, through his people, you're character deficient in attachment. And like an attachment strong individual will have between 3 to 10 individuals in their life in which they're able to be mutually vulnerable with, pour out their heart, and be able to connect with vulnerabilities in a, in an ongoing way. And so someone who's healthy is able to get in touch with what's going on and bring it into relationship in an ongoing way. And so yeah, so we have a lot of people, especially because our teaching in church has been so off, in the sense of we're always talking about, go to God, and then if you ever go to anyone else, it's like you must be causing divisiveness or causing dissension, or you need to go to only to the person who you're like. It's like they like stick. It's like you must deal with this yourself. You can't process it with anyone else, and if you do, you're disloyal, you're dishonoring, or you're living according to the flesh, or whatever we do with that in the church. But when we know, I'm struggling here, I'm stuck here, I'm disconnected from God, disconnected from people, and disconnected from my spirit-led self, it changes the dynamic. So it's now, it's like, of course we connect to God 100%. I spend so much time in connection with him, turning on worship music, talking to him, like pouring out my heart to him. But I also experienced him through seeing what he would be like with me via his eyes, his body posture, his stance towards me, and that so often comes via his representation on the earth, his body, people. And so it's so vital for us. And again, it also, if you take the science of it, I talked about when you're talking about a single brain trying to enact transformational change, it's impossible. That's actually not scientifically possible. If you're stuck with only the resources of your brain, you're stuck with only the resources of you trying to change. But as soon as you add another person in an empathetic, heart-to-heart, brain synchronized way, and you're able to go to those deep places of pain or whatever it is, character deficiency together, and you hold it together, all of a sudden now, according to science, that you have a much greater ability to face and feel what you couldn't face and feel alone. And so both science shows it, scripture show it, that we were never, ever, ever, ever meant to grow in character development outside of relationship. And think about it. Babies are born into families, and it's in families that they learn how to grow and to develop. Never, ever, ever do we tell a little 1-year-old, go to your room and deal with that. That would be abuse or neglect, or that would be a neglect. Like and then all of a sudden now it's like when we're older, we're still kind of doing that same neglect to ourselves. I need to deal with this all by myself. And if I don't, then I must be like, there's something wrong with me, or whatever we do with that. And so just as it has always been God's plan to grow and develop in family, where we didn't get what we didn't get in the family of origin, now we can get in the family of God. And that's what character formation coaching really brings to the table. It takes the fields of the wisdom of God is found in all these different fields of science, and then with the bedrock of scripture, like scriptures being the base, Christ at the center, him defining right and wrong, with the fear of God very strong, God defining what's right, what's wrong. We then can encounter Christ through character formation coaching, and that's what really sets it different from, say, psychotherapy, in which it's more of a modality. You're with a therapist, and the therapist helps you to change and grow and transform. This is the body of Christ. The facilitator is one of those people as part of a church system. I so value churches and church families and groups, or part of a group, a spiritual family in a sense, that spiritual family then will reach that person and help them to grow in their Christ-likeness character at the very core of who they are in family, not apart from family.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like, it just sounds so refreshing and healthy
Yeah,
to be able to have a family that you can do that with, and not alone,
totally,
or just
totally,
trying to get like resources from God only. Like, and obviously
totally.
he is all knowing and all of that, but obviously because he's all knowing, he said we need each other. So we should
Yes,
probably go towards that first, right?
yes. And he created us with that need.
Yeah.
Like he put inside of us that it wasn't good for us to do it alone. So that has been the very blueprint of how he created us.
Yeah. I love that statement, the blueprint, because without following the blueprint, like things get messy or like out of alignment or like
Yep.
they shift the wrong way or like things won't work properly. So
Yeah.
when we follow
Very
the
good.
blueprint, then we can do it exactly how it's supposed to be created to.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And how cool that it comes down to grace.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
grace is what we cannot provide or offer ourselves. Like it's like when we're stuck, we need more grace. Like how beautiful is it that it actually comes down to grace at the very foundation of transformation and change is what we cannot offer, what we cannot do on our own, that we absolutely need God and God through his body to provide for us, to internalize or to take in those resources which we do not possess. And that being the solution. The solution is grace. It's just so powerful.
Yeah. I love it. Like I've experienced so many times myself and helping others. It's been such a beautiful thing
Yeah,
and such an honor to be a part of this,
totally.
you know?
And being with people in such a way, like they become a part of your heart, like a part, like I like carry so like I like the reward to me is to be with people in that way. Like I start to feel those emotions rise up inside because it's so deep. Like my reward is like knowing you, so like in the way that I know you, like being, you know, like having heard you process, like being there with you in those moments. Like I have such a great, deep, heartfelt, joyous experience of knowing you.
Mhm.
And you have that joy of me knowing you, or and then also you've been there for me, and so it's like you know me, and so it's just this beautiful like there's nothing better in life. There's nothing more fulfilling. Like everything else is empty
Yeah. Yeah.
without this kind of encounter and without knowing and being known in this way. And so life feels so much richer and so much fuller. And the reward itself is simply being with people in this way. And then yeah, so
Yeah. I heard it once said that grace is like an open space. It's just endlessly open.
yeah,
And that's how I feel like with our encounters. Like I know I
yeah,
can go to you or to the other coaches or friends that we've built this
yeah,
with, and I can be like, here's my real ickiness, like
yeah,
in the fullest of it. And here's the
yeah,
body sensations attached to that and my thoughts, like all of
yeah,
it, and be met with such love and grace, and other people see the resilience
yeah,
even in that. Like that's
yeah.
always been so, every time I just love it. I love to receive that and I love to give that to others.
It's so so good. So
Yeah.
so good. You
Okay,
know,
so
you bring yeah, go ahead.
short, share with me just really quickly, like the gist of what character formation coaching is. Cause it's, I mean, I don't even know if we can define this very simply. Maybe
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. Um, okay, so if I was to define character formation coaching, I would say it is um, being with people in a certain way, and it create being with people in an environment that creates safety to find and discover whatever is there, and in a safe place, being able to own our character deficiencies and address them in a way that works, and and then to grow in that character and become different, and so that we don't fight the same battle. So it's growth and it's transformational change. It's um yeah, you might do a better definition than me. How would you
Yeah.
define character formation coaching?
I feel like that's exactly it. It's like pulling, like allowing somebody to experience real connection in a place where they felt completely alone
Yeah,
and discover what is there. Like, what is
yeah,
there? Like, is there things that they did that they feel shameful about? Or
yeah,
maybe it's
yeah,
a belief about a parent that they didn't want to face.
yeah,
Um, yeah, like even that. And then really feeling that fully. I mean, having whatever experience comes up in the body, shaking. I mean, today
yeah,
specific, some of my clients like shaking happening
yeah,
and me doing it with them because
yeah,
we're going at this together,
yeah,
and drawing in and just like even drawing further. And how deep do we have to go? How far? I'm going with you. Like I told my
yeah,
clients today, I will ride the wave with you,
yeah.
however high. Like
So good.
we're going for it. So and then I think the biggest thing is that transformational change really like dissolving old neural pathways and building new.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even
So
know it
true.
was possible for myself, especially
Yeah.
after experiencing the heartbreak that I experienced in my marriage, which a lot of the people listening know about that. I never thought that I would be free from that, and
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
free from this modality. So it's
Yeah.
been
And
incredible.
I've been with you on the journey. I have that joy of like knowing you on that journey.
Yeah. And healing my childhood stuff that was
Yes.
causing that pain to be even so much deeper,
Yeah.
and not even recognizing that. And that was something I was sharing with you before we started recording. But I do find that when there is pain already there that has betrayal like very deep and linked, and then like you're trying to deal with it from one aspect,
Yes.
once you can find that root, it's like, oh, like I'm coming up for air now, we're like
Yeah.
there.
So
And
good.
yeah, so that's kind of the way I would describe it. It's like
So
pulling out forgiveness.
hearing you, I got one more attempt.
Okay, go.
So I would say it's fierce love that enables a safe environment to get to the roots that's causing um, the negative fruit that you're trying to change.
Yes.
And then that fierce love then being what enables a permanent transformational change in that place, so that you just become different.
Yeah. And it's totally felt.
And it's totally felt.
Experiences. It's light.
Which is so fun. It's so fun that actually, like, I love doing this work.
Yeah.
Some people especially, when people like don't know about like attuning to, like, after something's faced and felt, you like attune just as intensely the positive, emergent positive, as you just did on the negative. And so like spending equal time with like just kind of like being in that place of joy and experience and connection and shaking and transformation. And it's like some people in like coaching sessions or in kind of this deep or inner healing stuff, and they're like so drained, and it's like they look like it just looks awful. Well, in character formation coaching, typically the average session, when you go through being disconnected, facing and feeling, and then kind of coming to this place of joy and connection, you walk out of a session floating on a cloud, like, oh my gosh, like, oh, like my wife always, like, when I walk out of a session, she's like, wow, that one went good. And I'm like, yes, it did. Like, it's like, oh, and that's me and the client. So it's like, it's both of us. We both float on clouds out. I mean, sometimes I've walked out of it being filled with the Holy Spirit, electricity and fire and laughing and joy and being woke up in the middle of the night and transformation happening into the next day. And my brain is like making all these connections and insights. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And that was simply from doing a session. It's just so cool.
It's so true. Even today, like a couple of my clients today, they hit those places and I'm just like, yeah. I just need to tell somebody they got it. They hit that place. It was new. It was something that they hadn't had happen before. And we were like on cloud nine, riding the wave. I always feel like I'm going to pop,
Yes, totally.
That's like going to pop, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, I don't ever feel drained after.
Yeah.
I'm always, I'm like lit up,
Yes, which is so cool. Like that's the end of, trying to do deep work.
Yeah. I mean, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron, seriously, it's just such an honor that you came on, and seriously, you're my coaching hero, and I just admire all your work, and it's been an honor to learn from you and grow with you. And I love that you're so down to earth and really just like so honest in your own story that it makes it easy as a coach to be that with my clients and people that are being influenced by me. And how much influence, how beautiful is it to be so honest and know that that's exactly how we're supposed to be.
Totally. And that's what character formation coaching, like the coach themselves is the instrument that brings about the change. Like it's like God through them. And so like what I love is like I've observed you, like, and you, like, each and every character formation coach has to be in the process. Last night I was doing deep hard, deep transformational work. But that breakthrough that I got last night is going to then translate into my breakthroughs with other clients. And so what I love, Melissa, is that I've watched you really commit yourself to doing this kind of deep work yourself. And so like now I get to watch you in the same places that we've been together, or I've seen you go, be with your clients and watch them get the same breakthrough that you've got. It's so utterly and completely incredible. And so, just since I'm on your podcast, I do give you, Melissa, like my highest endorsement, recommendation. Like you're in the thick of it. You're doing this work, and you're bringing that same work that you're receiving to all those that you work with. And I have such great joy to be with you on this process, and just kind of however I can support you along the way.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's literally such a blessing and honor. All right, you guys, thanks for listening.